Welcome to Game Time with Dylan Kattengell. Today we're going to be talking about the declining value of running backs and why you shouldn't pay one in 2020. Is your favorite running back replaceable? Is there an exception to the rule? Keep watching Game Time to find out. First thing I want to talk about is the differentiation in production between top-level running backs and lower-end running backs. Now, there is an exception to the rule, and we'll hop into a few of these later, but basically, if you're not a Christian McCaffrey or a Saquon, like we'll talk about, who can also do pass catching activities and Alvin Kamara out of the backfield, then the differentiation in production between that kind of middle 80% of running backs isn't that big. And the ability to replace those guys through free agency, doing a running back by committee style, or through the draft is really easy. And we'll hop into a few case studies of this and examples of why that differentiation in production doesn't warrant a big differentiation in dollars. So the first thing that I kind of want to talk about and hop into is teams are running less now. And teams run less, about 3% less than a decade ago, and trends continue to indicate that this is going to be a trend moving forward. If you look at coaching hires around the league, offensive coordinator Joe Brady out of LSU just recently had a very spread offense style this year with Joe Burrow. You look at Cliff Kingsbury out of Arizona, an air raid style offense that he's now running with Kyler Murray and now DeAndre Hopkins. If you listen for every coaching hire rumor, the first name that comes up is Lincoln Riley out of Oklahoma, who's a Mike Leach disciple, and that's the actual air raid offense. And the league is transitioning to coaches and play styles that facilitate a more spread and more air raid style offense. Therefore, the value of running backs is on a macro level declining because the necessity to have a all-star running back statistically is dropping every year. Teams are able to use running back by committees extremely effectively, and two good examples of this are the Chargers pre-Melvin Gordon and the 49ers just last year on the Super Bowl run. And you were able to see some of the things that they were able to show. For example, let's start with the Chargers. They had two guys in their backfield. Melvin Gordon, who was more of a power back, patient, elusive, pound you, break a tackle kind of guy. And then they had Austin Eckler, who was a very versatile kind of pass catcher, quick, agile, and it provided two looks for the Chargers out of the backfield that they were able to have a lot more offensive versatility. And so they were able to use these guys in different sets, dual back sets. And if there was ever a necessity, goal line situations, 3rd and 1s, whatever it may be, you might want to go with Melvin, a guy who can punch it right up the middle, something like that. But when they had a chance to take a shot, maybe they were, running some running back angle kind of play, get Eckler over the middle, maybe go for 20. They were able to look at different options offensively that a committee, the running back by committee, offered them. If you look at San Francisco, they have 3 guys that they utilize in Mostert, Coleman, and Breida, who all provide slightly different looks out of the backfield. And this is an asset in 2020 because teams look to spread the field and attack in a variety of ways. And now that the film study and everything is so advanced, you have to come each week preparing with more versatility and more schemed up plays than you had before. And you have way more options having 2 running backs to do that. Let's go ahead and, look at some stats, look at some data, and talk about why that top tier may be giving a long-term or a high dollar value contract to running backs is not a good idea. First case study, Le'Veon Bell. All right. So in 2018, when he was there, Steelers were 31st in rushing, 2nd in passing. Since then, Le'Veon has since exited that organization to be a New York Jet. The money didn't work. The contract didn't work, and he's not in Pittsburgh. Okay. Huge running back deal. Todd Gurley. Also cut. Not worth the money. Injury prone, and that's a thing that we're going to talk about a little later in the video, is injury rates and career length of running backs. But Gurley definitely did not command the money, and Gurley also started very strong, which was a factor of his offensive line and a few other factors. However, he got paid, north of $45 million and wasn't worth a penny of it. Zeke, $90 million. The differentiation in production between him and, let's say, a Nick Chubb, who was 2nd in the league, who's getting paid $1.8 million a year. I don't think that I know that's a unique example, but if you keep looking at other guys who will hop into the differentiation production between a guy like Zeke, who's rushing between 1,300 and 1,500 yards, and a guy like Mixon, Chubb, these guys coming up, Josh Jacobs, who are getting paid not a lot of money, are giving you very similar production. And with the money that you would save, there's so many different ways to improve your running game as a team. And the way I like to think about it is with the money that a lot of these teams save by having running back by committee or going to the draft for running backs, is they're able to utilize this cap space for offensive line, for outside help in different ways, to invest in a second running back that can provide them more versatility on offense, or with a straight offensive lineman. If you need a run blocking offensive lineman, you can go out and get one in the draft and free agency or somewhere with that cap space and utilize that to make your team better. David Johnson was also another case study of a contract that was, north of $38 million, didn't work out, traded recently out of Arizona. And again, another example that the production and the dollars just don't line up. They don't make sense to pay that person. If we look back at the four I just named, Le'Veon, Gurley, Zeke, and David Johnson, three of those guys are not with their original team, and one has a serious argument for being grossly overpaid. Let's take a look at a few guys that aren't paid such sums of money but still produce. And this is a really, really long list of guys, which proves the point that you don't need to pay a running back top tier money, even if they're giving you really good production. Breida, running back by committee, but very, very talented running back, $3 million. Kenyon Drake out of Arizona, $8 million total deal. Chubb, $7 million, $1.8 million a year. Over 1,400 rushing yards, which was second in the league. So second in the league at 1.8 million is really, really cost effective. Mixon, seventh in the league at about 1,200 yards, 1.6 million a year. Chris Carson, the kid out of Seattle, only a $2 million deal, $600,000 a year, 1,230 yards, fifth in the league. Then you have different guys that are, like May Cat, what about, the guys that aren't fifth in the league? Well, there's a bunch of guys that still provide production. And like I said, out of the draft, out of free agency, you can find guys. A great example is UDFA Phillip Lindsay out of the Broncos. He was 15th in total yards last year. Marlon Mack only getting paid $600,000 a year, 11th in the league in rushing last year. And the draft, you can go look at some of the top producing rookies. And remember, there's more than 32 running backs. There's multiple running backs. So looking at the running backs, David Montgomery, who I'm a huge fan of, 19th in the league in rushing. Sanders out of Philadelphia, 21st. Singletary, 25th in the league in rushing. And these are guys that are going to continue to improve. So the replaceability of running backs is really shown in that you can get really like that mid-level production, which only varies a little bit for such a small sum of money. Next point, going off of what I just said about running backs, the recent rookie running backs and their success, we have three running backs in this upcoming draft that are projected to be top, rookie producing running backs off the bat. And those guys are Jonathan Taylor, DeAndre Swift, and J.K. Dobbins. And in a Chris Trapasso CBS mock draft, they had Taylor going 49th, Swift going 64th, and Dobbins going 61st. And this just shows that teams aren't willing to often spend first round or high first round picks on running backs. Often in drafts, guys like Montgomery, Sanders, Singletary are guys available in the second and third days. And these are guys that they don't have to give big rookie contracts to. These are guys that are easily draftable in the second or third round. Not a lot of capital put into them, but a ton in return where you can get a rookie running back that can finish you somewhere between 7th and 21st in running back production in the league really, really easily. Second and third year stats for running backs continue to rise with their experience. So these are really, really smart investments for teams to have running back turnover come through the draft. Now, I will say there's an exception to the rule, and I don't like to toot my own horn, but as I was doing the research before this video, I was doing it before the Christian McCaffrey trade, and I believe that there are a few guys and few styles of guys that you should pay. And the reason for that is because they themselves provide the offensive versatility to do a ton of things out of the backfield. And my list goes as such. Christian McCaffrey, cut the check. Barkley, go ahead and cut the check. Alvin Kamara, cut that check. And then not in a cut the check way, but guys that can do a lot and are worth more than their position would indicate. It's a guy like a Darren Sproles, maybe not now in his older age, but that style of play, pass catcher, returner, a lot of versatility on the offensive end. And then looking forward, maybe if you guys have checked out Deebo Samuel, he's a guy that offers some cool jet sweep running capabilities as well as a ton of versatility on the outside as a receiver. So with the guys that should get paid, they should get paid because they can catch the ball and run the ball. Let's look at McCaffrey, who just got one of the biggest running back contracts ever. I think the most per year at $16 million a year. And he, in his first 3 seasons, was the first player to go 2,500 rushing yards, 2,500 receiving yards. Also, last season, he had 114 first downs, over 7 a game, most in the league, and 19 total touchdowns, which was tied for first. So when we're talking about a McCaffrey, there's an exception to the rule, and this guy is so just incredible as a football player, let alone a running back, that he warrants that kind of money. This kind of way that Saquon is just so good, thick, gets downhill, quick, agile, can break multiple tackles. These are guys that are worthy of the money. Guys like an Alvin Kamara who can catch out of the backfield, provide you a ton of versatility. You keep seeing the word I keep circling to is versatility, and it's because these running backs that have the ability to do multiple things warrant the money, because they provide that offensive production that running backs that only run the ball do. The last point I wanted to touch on was just quickly the injury rate and career length, which should disincentivize teams from also paying large sums of money or giving long-term contracts to running backs. And the injury rate for the running back position is the highest in the league. They rate it on an injury rate scale, which is how many it's like an advanced metric, but basically, are you eligible for like most of the season? And if not, how so? Anyways, the rating for a running back is 5.2. It drops after that significantly by 30% to, I believe, linemen, to the defensive line. And after that, it's pretty even. It continues to drop down. Kickers don't get injured. But running back injury rate of 5.2 is the highest in the league, and their career length of 2.57 years compared to the NFL average of 3.3 also indicates injuries or running back turnover would indicate that running backs don't stay in the league. There's not a long shelf life on your running back, and teams are always looking at the next running back, at the next guy. And you can have so often you see guys move after having a really successful season. One of the ones that I, as a personal guy, I've always liked the way Jay Ajayi plays. And he was killing it on a few teams, Philly and Miami, and he got bounced. And, that's just the way the position works. And the last thing I wanted to touch on is just the overall team play. If you have a really, really good offensive line, there's a good chance that you can find a running back that fits that style. Maybe a guy that's a gap buster, really strong, gets downhill quickly, that fits that kind of scheme. Maybe you need a speed guy back when there was like an example of that comes to my head is like a Jamal Charles providing a playmaker look compared to Alex Smith's more game manager mentality, a little like dichotomy between the two. Finding a running back that fits your style and fits what your team is doing is so huge. If that's a running back by committee situation, that's a good way to look at it as well. But if you're able to address team needs to improve your running game, to provide your team with more looks offensively, that's huge. So line play is huge. If teams aren't able to load the box because you have bad receivers, if teams are able to load the box because you have bad receivers, teams are able to load the box because they know they can get outside on you. If there's a dominant edge rusher in a matchup and it skews, run defense to one side, there's a ton of ways that the other factors of your team aside from the actual running back affect running back play. And that's something that I think a lot of people forget at when they look at a running back. They look at the stat, oh yeah, whoa, that looked, Dalvin Cook had a great year this year. Okay, well, is he good? Yes. But let's take a look at a few other factors that maybe said, hey, Minnesota up there, they had Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs. They didn't load the box a lot. They ran a lot of cover 3 and cover 4 against those guys, and they ran a lot of sky plays against those guys, especially on third and longs and second and short, stuff like that. And it gave Dalvin a good opportunity to go get those first downs and touchdowns. Now, that isn't, this is no hate on Dalvin, but it's just a situation where you have to look at team play around a guy to see if the production is because they are an excellent football player and are able to generate plays on their own, or if it is a factor of the team. Obviously, not 100% of the time, it's going to be a combination of the both of those, but you have to see which side it's skewed to evaluate if the factors and stats of your running back are such that they are a factor of your team or a factor of the running back. Wrap it up real briefly. The long-term contracts for running backs haven't worked in the past. They continue to not work. They continue to be terminated early, as well as guys that provide similar running back production can be drafted, paid small sums of money, and the injury rate and career length of receivers should disincentivize high running back contracts moving forward, as well as the decline in running and the switch to a spread and air style offense are all reasons that the running back position value is declining and why running backs are probably, I project, not going to be paid as much in the future, and why these contracts might look more and more bleak, as well as teams looking later, 5th, 6th rounds to draft a running back by committee, go draft specific needs, whether that be a speed guy or a hammer back for short goal line punches. There's going to be different looks, but the running back position does not hold the value it held a decade or two ago, and I continue to believe it will decline. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys liked it, a like and a subscription really help out the channel a ton. If you have any questions or have an idea for a future video, I love to address all of those, so leave a comment below, as well as any other related content can be found on my channel, Game Time with Dylan Kattengell.